Hey, welcome to Discard. Today I've got a new series idea that I'm piloting, and it's going to be called Gameroom Tours. And essentially it's going to be based on the photos and videos that you guys send into the channel, and then we take a look at those photos and videos and look for inspiration in each one of those. I'm not going to be able to get everybody's videos and pictures on the channel, but I'm going to cherry pick out some of the collections that I think are interesting or have interesting ideas. Let's take a look. So the first collection that we're going to be taking a look at today came in from a guy called Gameroom. And what made me take special notice of his collection is just how massive and sprawling it is. But at the same time, he's also managed to kind of secure this kind of archival look to the entire thing. For some reason, I get this feeling that I could walk through this area and kind of take my time looking at all of the different games and figures and things that he has laid out there and displayed, kind of like you would in an art gallery. One of the things I didn't really notice until later is that he actually has a few different size shelves in here. And he does a really good job of kind of blending them in because he's utilizing those areas to display the items. And as the entire space is used to display the items, it all kind of blends in. And it just goes to show that you don't have to worry about what kind of shelf you have or where you're putting it. As long as you're utilizing the space correctly, you can make it all blend in perfectly. And speaking of one of those smaller shelves that is in his area, he's actually utilized the space above it to display a lot of his Metal Gear goods. After a quick glance, you could probably estimate that he's got most of the Metal Gear games in there, if not all of them. He's even managed to use this larger space to display his Metal Gear Rising box, that special edition that's sitting there. And the wall space behind it, you can see that he used two posters to kind of cover up that wall. In my opinion, I think it's a really good choice to cover up that wall with those posters and make good use of it as opposed to just leaving it completely blank. This whole area kind of frames in that area and your eye is going to be drawn to that wall. So using that as like a bouncing board so that you hit those posters, you look at that, and then you look immediately down at all of his figures, all of those games. It's pretty awesome. And it seems to be kind of a pattern, but Gameroom seems to have these kind of shrine areas for these big series of games that he absolutely loves. So we run into this next one, which is Tomb Raider. It's similar to the Metal Gear display. I think this one's displayed perfectly as well. You have a bunch of games in there from Tomb Raider. It shows that you love Tomb Raider. It's important to you. You know, that's why I like looking at these collections, because you can find out which game somebody actually cares about and the other ones that kind of just get slid onto the shelf next to the other ones. And you'll see that these are kind of displayed out in a U shape. So if you're standing there at the center, you have all these games facing you. You can see everything that's on that shelf. I even like the little attention to detail with the Game Boy games sitting down there. You can see their artwork. There's one little Game Boy Advance game down there that's on a rose-colored gaming stand. I highly recommend those as well. And of course, the three large figures at the very bottom, that's probably the best place you could put those. And yet another shrine in his collection he has for Shantae. I know for a fact Gameroom is super into Shantae. His pocketbook must have gotten a lot lighter after the latest limited run stuff that came out. But this is another amazing use of turning games into an amazing display. And you gotta admit, there's never gonna be a time he can't find the game for one of these beloved franchises that he's in love with. And in a couple other photos, he shows his amiibos being displayed out there in box. I don't know if these are open and he's just kind of reinserted the amiibos in there or if they are completely sealed, but it's really nice to see all those amiibos laid out like that, all of the different series that make up all of the amiibo. It's one really fun thing to collect, and it's definitely one really fun thing to display. And of course, he has to flex on us with all of his consoles. He's got a couple special edition consoles in there, and this is a good rack to utilize if you want to have a very easy time of managing the cords that are around your devices. I've seen a lot of people and collectors that like to use these just because of ease of access. A nice Final Fantasy VII figure sitting out on display. Clearly this is very important because it's really taking up a lot of real estate from the collection. So usually when you see a big figure like that getting all of that room, it's more of an important franchise, and certainly Final Fantasy is one of those larger franchises that gets a lot of people interested. And the last picture he sent in was a lot of his PS4 games all on a shelf. Next to it, he has one of these, I believe they're called Detolf cases from IKEA. It's a glass case with shelves in it. A lot of these light up, and that has a bunch of his figures in it. It looks fantastic. And from what I'm seeing from the figures that he's chosen, they seem to be PlayStation 4 figures, or at least PlayStation aligned. And of course, I can't say no to having little figures on the shelf in front of your games. You're only seeing the spines of all of these games in the first place, which is not very much of all those games. You might as well have some figures out on those shelves as well, with all that extra space that's sitting there. Next collection comes in from Russ. He's got an amazing collection that I think is very important because I think it's very feasible for most people. In the wide shot of his room, you can see a few different shelves of different shapes and sizes, and they are packed to the rim with games and figures. It all kind of works together. This looks like a nice, comfortable space to be in and grab a game and get playing. One of the first things I noticed in this room is that he's got a lot of media shelves. And media shelves are fantastic. If you wanted to be displaying those spines, if you want a place just for your games to be in perfectly, media shelves are the way to go. IKEA had some for a while there, the Gnedby, I think they were called. And they were the perfect size for games, but now you've got to get them elsewhere because apparently those have finished their run. But media shelves are the perfect choice in this scenario. This might be a smaller room, and with bigger shelves, if you happen to get those, they would take up so much more of that space. It wouldn't all fit together, and with these smaller shelves, it fits perfectly. And I think by looking at the photo, you also see that outside of just games and seeing those spines, you can also see figures and utilize that small space in order to display other things on those shelves too. Both shelves definitely house figures, as well as a Game Boy Advance in the corner down there, and a bunch of other things that they've decided to put on here, including boxes. Of course, my question would always be, why did you put the Kirby's so low? They look incredibly sad at the very bottom down there. And I should add to the space that I think the plant is a big deal. I think having a plant or some piece of greenery in your collection, even if it's a fake one, makes a huge difference overall to your game room and just really brings a lot of life in. Having it by the window is like 10 out of 10 perfect too, because you get some light bouncing through those leaves and it just really lights it up. And in this room that's all these kind of faded colors, it really pops right there and just brings that little bit of life in. And going into one of his other photos, you can see a more zoomed out picture where you can see he's got artwork and posters above those as well. So he's utilizing that space and making it beautiful at the same time. It's really easy to clutter a space and turn it into a mess by just putting stuff on top of other stuff and, you know, colors on top of other colors. But I think he's done a good job of spacing out the artwork and making it so things are kind of very clean. But I definitely wanted to highlight this collection as I think it's incredibly feasible for people to do. I think it's very clean, it's not cluttered, it doesn't just completely take over the space with a bunch of stuff. I think it does a really good job of being the collection that you want to go in and grab a game and start playing your games. And the next massive collection comes in from Paul, and he sent these pictures in, and he has a huge collection. There's no way I'll be able to touch on all the stuff in here, but I'll try to do a rundown of some of the really cool things that I've seen in here. So looking at the overall space that he has here, he has a very large space to work with, and I think that really helps with kind of spreading things out and making it so you don't get too cluttered. It really helps overall, especially if you have a lot of stuff like Paul seems to have. He's got a nice L-shaped couch sitting there, a perfect place to sit back, relax, and play some video games. And he's got everything really nice and tightly put underneath his large television there. His entertainment center seems to be a Kallax unit. I've talked about those before in videos in the past. But he has these nice little stands in there that help him to separate out those areas. It gives a nice divider so he can put consoles in there. He can do a lot of things and really pack more into there, as well as just filling the space. One of the biggest problems with these Kallax units is you just can't fill that headspace above whatever it is you're putting in there. For instance, if you use PS4 games, you're gonna have just a ton of headspace and it just doesn't look good in the end. But the way he's doing it here fills the space and also utilizes it, and I think it's fantastic. Another really cool touch to this game room is that you see he has all of his controllers at the top being charged. So at any given time, he can play any console and be ready to rock. There's no running around for batteries or trying to charge something last minute looking for a charger. He's got it all ready and set. A nice little nook with his CRTV with a Mario down there holding his controller. I think that's pretty cool, a nice little touch down there. Zooming to the far side of the room, he has this nice cabinet there, an arcade 1-up cabinet for the Ninja Turtles, which is awesome. I always wanted one of those. They're just a little out of my price range, but man, is it beautiful. That end of the room is also incredibly beautiful. He's done a great job of painting the wall at the very end to make it very Mario specific down there. He has the glass cabinets that has a bunch of stuff displayed in them as well. And one thing I noticed throughout his collection is he uses a lot of floating shelves. He has these white floating shelves that is attached to the wall in different areas, and I think they are a great way of displaying stuff. I love floating shelves because they don't have a bunch of hang-on stuff hanging off of them to look at, to draw your eye. They're just the same color as the wall, and you put whatever it is you need on top of them, and that becomes the focal point of the shelf, as opposed to, you know, hardware and all of this other stuff. And then, like earlier I was talking about, there's these Gnedby shelves that come from IKEA. These have been since canceled from IKEA. They don't make them anymore. or at least for the time being. But I was looking at his, and I saw for a minute, I didn't think I liked what was going on here. It's very dark in this one area of the Nedby shelf, and he had some things that he's trying to display in this very small area. These shelves are very narrow, and they're very short. So there's just not that much room in there to work with when it comes to displaying. But he was smart enough to take another picture of them close up, and I think it looks really good. So I definitely changed my mind on whether or not I like this or not. I definitely like it in the end, especially up close when this is well lit. It can be a photograph sometimes that makes something look bad or look darker or just look out of place. But when you get that good shot of where you'd be when you were actually looking at this, this is perfect. You have your games in there, he's got them on 45-degree angles. They're taking up the space, and also this shelf is extra space for when he gets more games. So you can easily take some of these displays out and put more games into the shelf and utilize that space for storage. And one of the places on this Nedby that I did really like was where he's got his handhelds displayed. Towards the bottom, he has handhelds displayed on those little cheap stands, those inexpensive stands, but it looks fantastic. These stands are super cheap. I made an entire video, go and check on it. I will leave a link in the description to that. But just look at the power that these stands hold. You can take your handheld collection and display them and make them look like $1 million for just less than $1. He also has this amazing figure of Luigi's Mansion. I believe this is the first 4 figures. Figure that came out from them recently, and I really wanted to grab one of these, but it was another time where it was a battle between video games and getting this figure. But man, do I wish I got it. It lights up, it looks fantastic, it looks like they put a lot of detail in it and made it really nice and smooth. And I wanted to finish this off with this beautiful perler art of Scott Pilgrim that's in here. I think it's a fantastic subject that they picked of them kissing. It looks beautiful. I would definitely pick this up if I saw it at a convention and somebody was making it. I would definitely purchase this as soon as possible. Glad we all get the Scott Pilgrim games. I am stoked. So that's all the collections that I'm going to be talking about in this video. Like I said before, I'm just going to be cherry picking some collections that I think have some interesting ideas in them and then talking about those. I definitely have more from the previous ones that I would love to talk about at this time. In the future, I'm definitely going to announce it just to be an open door policy if this video does happen to do well enough. Outside of that, we may go back to just doing the other video that we did very recently with everyone's game collections in it and just do that on a yearly basis. But I figured we'd give this a try and see if it worked out. But this channel is definitely primarily geared towards finding game room display ideas. If you're looking for a game room display idea for one of your items, a cool way to display it on a wall or a shelf or etc., you can always type in discart and then the item on YouTube and search for it that way. More than likely, I've made a video for it in the past. But if you like this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. Otherwise, have a great day and collect what you love.
Slightly growing within me, like a thunder breaks a tree. Oh my, makes me crazy. My body aches and my mind's lazy. My head feels